Hi. They may have slipped from under the limelight by today, but even if that's the case, I still believe that adventure games are some of the most important and fun titles. Sure, they may not be as old as arcade games are. I mean, hardly anything is as old as this. Or this. Or even this. But they've been providing us with countless hours of fun nearly from when the gaming spawned into existence. And somehow, against all odds, they remained a genre that never gave up and most importantly didn't die, which is not something that can be said about many others. And that's why I'd like to give them a few minutes of my time today, and hopefully you'll join me on this short trip down the memory lane. In the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was chaos. But what came after all that commotion was something that no one playing simple, vector-based arcade titles or first low-color low-res home releases could have ever predicted. And it was walls upon walls of never-ending long-ass text, with even more walls full of letters following after. And while these first adventure games were rather crude and primitive by today's standards, and also used despised by me text parsers, there's something that cannot be taken away from them, and it's creativity and presentation. Because they appeared out of nowhere and stole hearts of gamers all around the world, showering them with waterfalls of sentences telling tales of great mysteries, evil villains to beat, or treasures to be found. And they used historically the highest fidelity graphics known to man, imagination. So, even if your RTX 5090 can move billions of pixels at once with ease, imagination can create and populate entire universes. Imagination can create and populate the entire universes. Adventure games may not be flowers, because only flowers are flowers, but after the initial sprout came growth, and they too evolved considerably. Bloomed, one could say even. Full-color EGA and then in time VGA graphics was what brought life to all these places, adventures, characters and puzzles that we were imagining, and the animations that accompanied them made us feel as if we were really there with our hero or heroine, taking active part in it all. Sure, most titles, especially from the start of the era, Sierra, still used text parsers, which had you type in dozens of often ridiculous commands and make stupid mistakes and typos trying to type in dozens more, but the interactivity and immediate on-screen feedback, often accompanied by a melodic musical tune and sound effects, made it all worth it. Games began being more and more creative, not necessarily in naming, and yeah, I'm looking at you again, Sierra, with all those quest this, quest that thing, and it made us want to play more and more of them, going on new and unimaginable adventures. Being the best of the best, at anything really, always unintentionally invites a challenge. I mean, everyone wants to be the creme of the crop and no one wants to be just a follower. And Sierra made a huge mistake in the third era of adventure games evolution, aptly named by yours truly as Boom. What did they do, you may wonder? Well, they were too slow. And I don't mean in terms of game releases, as they seem to be dropping them left and right, with each new one spawning into existence every 17 or 18 seconds. No, there were bazillions of Sierra games on the market, and that was not the reason. But while Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V works like magic in a spreadsheet or when copying someone's homework, it's not great in game design as it leads to stagnation. Enter LucasArts, or at the time still Lucasfilm Games. And they did what Sierra failed to notice being necessary. They innovated the hell out of the genre. First came mouse support and switched to a super ergonomic and user-friendly point-and-click interface, which allowed us to get even deeper into the stories we were being told, not having to seek the right combinations of words to type in, but just clicking on the objects and environments. Then they've perfected the storytelling, often allowing us to take different paths throughout our adventure or changing the entire gameplay loop, basing it on an interesting mechanic, like the music notes in Loom, for instance. And finally, they went all into cinematics. Initially with in-engine cutscenes, later on with full-fledged animations. And this added immeasurable amounts of depth and charm to the titles and eventually dethroned Sierra. The king is dead, long live the king. All great things must come to an end, and adventure games were no different. After exploding into popularity in the early to mid-90s, end of the decade brought the Dusk of a point-and-clicker. It's hard to tell when it happened exactly, but if I had to wager a guess, I'd say that it was sometime between the amazing 1998's Grim Fandango and 1999's equally as epic The Longest Journey. I mean, sure, tons upon tons of amazing adventure games released until then, like both Broken Sword titles, Free Monkey Island games, Maniac Mansion Duology, Gabriel Knight games, Mists, Kyrandias, and naturally many different quest games from Sierra among others. But by the turn of the millennium, adventure games, at least pure and not mixed with action elements, were nearly gone. They never died though, there was no funeral, no one cried or spoke about them with melancholy, they just sort of disappeared, and we never noticed when and how. It's a sad turn of events, but also one that had to happen. Dusk had to happen for Rebirth to take place, and it sure as hell did, and in style no less. But we'll get to that in a minute right after this short disclaimer. This video is not covering action-adventure games or any other mixed genres, as these probably deserve talking about on their own, so while the next decade had absolutely incredible and mind-blowing games released, like Alan Wake or even To Siberia's, these were either mixed genre like that first, or few and far between like that last one. So hate me or not, your call, but a period between 2002 and 2009, maybe 2010 even, is what I consider a dead time for the adventure. But Rebirth, yep, I did not forget about it. It still happened. And it was all thanks to one seemingly coming out of nowhere developer known as Telltale. Between late 2009 and 2012, they single-handedly brought back the adventure games from the brink of extinction right back into the mainstream. I mean, sure, it may never be the genre of genres anymore, but it was definitely not going anywhere. They dropped new Sam & Max, Wallace and Gromit, New Monkey Island, Back to the Future, Jurassic Park and The Walking Dead, all in the span of just 3 years. What's more, they too, like LucasArts earlier, innovated. They got rid of by the 2010s clunky mouse-driven interface, switching into more natural-feeling, contextual one, in which all interactable items, characters and places would show a prompt when you were near them. They also supplemented gameplay with short but fun quick-time events, which may have not turned these classics into action games, but definitely injected more life right into their core design. So thank you, Telltale Games. Because you've done what many necromancers failed before, you've resurrected the dead and brought it back to life better than ever. And finally, we're in the great split. Copyright pending. I mean, I like to think of it as such, but you may feel to call it whatever you'd like. It may very well be Bacon, Poopy Pants, or 1963 Chevy Impala. I don't care. The point is, thanks to Telltale, the genre grew and prospered, but also reached a very interesting point. A point that split its timeline into two because of its own existence. And it was the popularization and a huge emergence of the indie gaming scene. Now, by then, adventure games were quite well off, they released semi-regularly and were usually pretty fun, but the arrival of those who preferred to work for themselves and not big corpos shook the gaming world quite a bit. It was not an earthquake, mind you, and more like a split from an iceberg. And while the double and AAA adventure games kept releasing, indie devs wanted to make their own too, and given access to money and resources, or to be clear here, lack thereof, they've stuck to old tried and tested design formulas. So pixel graphics, point-and-click interfaces, and in some very, very rare cases, even text parsers. And you know what? It appeared that there was a market for both. For these huge adventures that would take you on a trip all around the world, showing it to you in beautiful large graphics with orchestral soundtracks and impeccable voice casting. As much as for simple, yet innovative or just fun as hell classic titles. And while it may sound like a blasphemy, I'ma tell you a secret. This, last and current era of adventuring, along with the early 90s, are both my equal favorites. Because while incredibly touching tales, like that of First to Life is Strange games, or thought-provoking Detroit Become Human, are the experiences that I will never forget and they will haunt my dreams forever, I enjoy occasional simpler and just fun titles like Thimbleweed Park or Deponia games too. And today, I'm really happy that despite the turbulences throughout the genre's lifetime, it not only managed to survive, but also flourished, and it did so into different, but equally as enjoyable species of video gaming flowers. This was not a usual kind of a video for me, as I normally cover particular games in various lists, split into years, systems, genres or whatever, but it was quite fun to look at the gaming from a different perspective and share my observations and perhaps a weird outlook at the adventuring genre too. I wonder if you found it a fun watch, or is it not what you came here for? So make sure to let me know in the comments below. And when you're down there already, why not help the channel grow by tapping those like, sub, share and bell icons too, for YouTube to let you know when I release something new. I'm done for today, so take care of yourself and I'll talk to you soon.